Good morning, everybody. Today is September 25th, Monday, and this class is Computer Science 1010 and ES 1060. This is interesting. There we go. I have to write somebody. So my camera's sideways. I've never had this happen before. All right. There we go. So let me go ahead and share the screen. We have some oh, I can't even share my screen. All right, well, that's great. So we're just cooking with gas right now. So I don't even know. So, all right, so today what we're doing is we are talking about your code, the MATLAB code that you wrote, the draft for our program for temperature conversion. And the first thing is I graded everything and I commented to you about your grades. So when you're able to access Moodle, you'll be able to see what I said. Hang on just a second. I'm going to see if I can do this differently because I'm going to have a real trouble writing this way. Let me see if I can get this. There, I oriented my camera differently. All right, that works. So the first thing is, of the 15 people in this class, I received 11 draft submissions, and those are graded like homework. So if you've not turned in your draft, please do so because it's going to count toward your grade. The second thing is the code was all over the place. Some people did an excellent job, and some people did a pretty good job, and some people did not do a very good job at all. So if you got an 80% or above on your code, that means that I'm really, really happy with your progress. Okay, so if you look at that, but please read your comments because I tried to give you feedback that was really directed toward your code. Sometimes you notice if you've had me for other classes, when you do your homework, I'll just say, good job, keep up the good work, I like your format or something like this. In this instance, I tried to give you some pretty pointed feedback at what's going on with your code. So there were a few commonalities that I wanted to point out. And one is the use of the command display is really problematic. And I did not notice this until we started using it. But display is, I'll just say problematic. I would recommend, if you're having trouble with the command display, to use the fprintf instead, or DISP. Oh, and it should be small letters. So that also brings up point number one, is that MATLAB, just like a lot of other programming languages, is very sensitive to capital letters or small case letters. And so make sure that you use those correctly. But I think fprintf or DISP are preferable to display. The other one is for input. When there's a string, I suggested, and I didn't really talk about this, so I want to bring this up explicitly. I said, ask for input as a letter, F, R, K, or C, and then you'll do your routine based on whatever that letter is. I had a couple of people who used the whole word, like input Fahrenheit. And this brings up a problem we didn't discuss, but with MATLAB, the length of the string matters. So if these words are not the same length, it creates a problem in MATLAB. So I really suggest that you just use one letter because then it's always just FCRK instead of like trying to resolve Fahrenheit to Celsius, or because they're different lengths. Or somebody did an input that I thought was really clever. They said input 1 if it's Fahrenheit, 2 if it's Celsius, and so forth, 3 if it's Rankine, 4 if it's Kelvins. And that actually solved some really cool problems. So that might be another way of thinking about it. The third thing I wanted to bring out was the error of input. So in other words, if you put in something other than those letters. This seemed to work for most people pretty well. Problem arose with the decision if we go below absolute zero. So I thought about this a lot over the weekend. And basically, what I came up with was the easiest way to do this is to go through that if, else, if loop. Oh, that was another thing. A lot of people wanted to use if, else, else, else. MATLAB seems to work better with the else if structure. So if you use if for the first instance and else if, and then your last one is else, even if there's no statement. Else doesn't even really call for a statement. It just says, I'm checking all of these things above, and if none of them happen, else this is what's going to happen. Okay, so that's one point. But here's the deal with this absolute zero decision. If you go through that the if structure, and you've calculated all of your variables, you have f equals something, which maybe is your input, c equals something, r equals something, and k equals something. And you can look over here in your workspace to make sure that those things are being calculated. After you drop out of that if structure, the best place to make the determination as to whether you're below absolute zero is in a second if structure below that one. So you only really need two things. You can just say, once you've calculated those variables and you can see in your workspace that all four of them are calculated, you can just take any one of them. And if it doesn't meet criteria, so you could say if k is less than 0, then you could say f printf, try again, or too low, or has to be above 0, k has to be above 0, or you're below absolute 0, or some statement like that. Then you can just use an else statement. So if anything else, if it's not below 0, then you can display or fprintf all four of the variables, f, k, c, and r. You see what I mean? So that's the, and then just do an end if, or what, I don't remember if it's end or end if in that case. But that seems to be, I think, the easiest way to do it. So in other words, you run through I was thinking before, don't even go through the calculations if k is below 0, but then you have to check over and over again. You know, you have to do some calculations and check. And if you just do it at the end, so in other words, your program goes ahead and calculates values even if you're below absolute 0. But then if one of those variables, if k or r is below 0, or if r is below whatever, -459, or k is below -273, you can choose any of those for the condition. Just display a different message. I think that's going to be the easiest way to do it. All right, so at this point, does anybody have any questions? All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and quit recording, but I will stay here, and if you have questions about your code, you can ask me. And Derek, I'll leave Zoom on in case you have any questions. But if you don't, and actually, I don't want to embarrass you in front of your classmates, but your code was excellent. You did a really, really good job. So, but if you have questions, please ask, and if not, you can sign off. And then this afternoon in lab, we'll do the same thing, where I don't have a lecture prepared for lab because that would be antithetical to the idea of what a lab is, but I'm just there to help you get your code written. All right. Now, the last piece of information I wanted to talk about today is Tuesday and Wednesday of this week, I'm going to be working remotely. So when we have class on Wednesday morning, it's not going to be face-to-face. It's going to be just on Zoom. So if you have any questions, please come to class and I'll help you with that. In other words, come to class on Zoom and I'll help you. And if you don't have any questions, you're not obligated to come, because it's just to get your code at the ready, because it's due Wednesday night at midnight. Okay. Now, the other part is everybody who's here had turned in code and everything was, was at least adequate. I was telling your classmates, if you made an 80% or above on your draft, that means your code is really good. So And so it counts as a homework. The code will count as one of the exercises. So the code itself in the final analysis will have more weight than the draft, but that's kind of where we are. Anyway, but so on Wednesday, if you have questions, please Zoom with me Wednesday morning at 9. If you don't have any questions, you don't have to Zoom with me Wednesday morning at 9. Then your code is due midnight or 1 minute until midnight on Wednesday. And I will grade it by the end of the week. But I will not be physically present on campus Tuesday and Wednesday, but I'll be available both days for Zoom meetings if you need to use Calendly to schedule with me. And then of course for class on Wednesday, okay? And I will be here at 2 o'clock over next door, hopefully with Moodle back up, we'll see, to work on the code some more. All right, any questions at all? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and quit recording. And then hopefully I will post this to our Moodle page sometime today. So you can stay and work on your code, or you can leave. Class is officially over, but I will be here. I'll be available on Zoom and face-to-face until 10 o'clock. Have a great day.